Business owners and leaders, Rob Marshallonis here with LSP123. I help businesses increase employee productivity, and I'm sharing a productivity solution with you today that is built on the simple concept of critical outcomes. Critical outcomes. Critical outcomes are just a powerful way for you to understand and assess and lead and guide your organization, especially through your leaders. So let's talk about this a little bit. Critical outcomes are an essential leadership responsibility, I suggest, to clarify your organization's top outcomes. It's just an essential responsibility that you and your other leaders do this to determine what your top outcomes are. And specifically, for some guidance on this, in the next 6 to 18 months, your top outcomes in the next 6 to 18 months, that's how I would define critical outcomes. These outcomes could include for your organization, but even down to the department or the project or the individual level. It could be numeric goals. It could be milestone events that you want to accomplish. Just different things that you want to achieve, outcomes that you want to get done in a relatively specific period of time. One way I like to look at outcomes, critical outcomes, are that they generally fit somewhere between your vision, your long-term, multi-year vision for your organization, and they're longer. They're shorter than your vision, but they're longer than your daily and weekly action items. Okay, so that's where I would park critical outcomes. One nice thing about critical outcomes for an organization is they emphasize output and results rather than inputs and intention. So often we get distracted by our intentions or the inputs, and we don't put enough emphasis on the outputs and results that we want to accomplish as leaders. It's powerful because it gives teams focus and motivation. It gives them freedom, boundaries within which they can operate, and it also helps you to justify resources when you have clear, critical outcomes. Some people struggle with how to define what would be a critical outcome. And so one of the ways I help business owners with this is by identifying some categories for you to think about. I'm going to give you 6 critical outcome categories to think about as you're selecting what are the most critical for you and your organization. The first would be risk management. So a typical thing you might have under this would be safety. If you're running a construction crew, for example, you would certainly have safety as one of the top critical outcomes for that group. That would fall under risk management. Number 2 category would be stakeholder satisfaction, taking care of your customers, your employees, could be your shareholders. A lot depends on the circumstances of your business, but stakeholder satisfaction. Number 3, no surprise, financial results often make it into the list of your critical outcomes. Number 4, productivity. What kind of outputs are you wanting or needing from your different inputs? Number 5, growth. Not surprising, very typical to have a growth critical outcome for many organizations. And 6, what I like to include in this is personal development. So down on a personal individual level, what personal development outcomes might be essential for some of your employees or leaders? To give this a little more clarity is if you can just identify from 2 to 4 objectives in each of these categories and possibly divide it amongst your leaders, just think of the power of that. Six categories, say 3 objectives in each would give you 18 critical outcomes that you would have clearly identified to focus on and to help guide your organization and your employees. Critical outcomes help your team understand the big picture and the context of their contribution. And a nice way to link these critical outcomes for clarity and to get buy-in is to show how the different stakeholders will benefit by you achieving these critical outcomes. Question for you as we wind down here. Which of your work groups do you wish was more productive? Which work group do you wish was more productive? And how might some clarity around critical outcomes, some guidance and support of critical outcomes help that work group become more productive? I'm Rob Marshallonis with LSP123, just working here to help you, your organization, and your business be more productive.